Just walk away. Just walk away, and there will be an end to the horror.
Hello everybody, we are live. Thank you for tuning in again. I am Ayam Sirias, and this is MGTOW Chats episode number 73. My co-host Lamprey is still in Cambodia, so it will just be myself and my very special guest, Ed Chiarini. Ed is best known as the creator and founder of the website wellaware1.com, and the link to that website as well as others will be below for any of you guys to check out for yourself. He's also an artist, inventor, and independent investigator. He also did illustrations for 2 books on the JFK assassinations. They were by Robert Groden. They were titled High Treason and the Killing of a President. And we're going to talk about that stuff, trust me, in the show. And all of this eventually led to his investigations into what today we call, and I'm sure you guys have heard of this, the actor-based reality. And we'll get into what that means as well. Now, Ed has also said, give me 2 hours of your time and you will never look at the world the same again. So, Ed, thank you for giving us a couple hours of your time. It's wonderful. So how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on, man. I want to basically, what I'd like you to do for my viewers, and I know that a lot of them probably are unfamiliar with your work, maybe the first thing we could do is have you explain the concept of actor-based reality in case they're unfamiliar with it.
Sure. That term came while I was on the Joyce Riley's The Power Hour radio show. That was during a time when I was investigating the Gabrielle Gifford shooting in Arizona. If you don't remember what that was the congresswoman that was having a gathering outside of a Safeway supermarket, and a supposed lone gunman came up and shot her with a point-blank range with a through wound to the head, and then also shot a federal judge that day. Mm-hmm. So that investigation, when I started to watch some of the video clips on YouTube and on the news, the people that they were showing, the eyewitnesses, there was something about them that just wasn't ringing true to me. It didn't pass the smell test. And some of these people, it's similar to what you see nowadays when you see the school shootings and you see this parent going on TV, their child was just murdered and there's not a tear in their eye, and they're just talking about the kid like as if it was made up, an actor, which that's what it is. So when I started to see these individuals on TV, the red flags went up. So I decided to contact one of the individuals that was on there, and Stephen Katz was his name. He's the purple-haired guy that you'd see. And supposedly he was Jared Loughner, who was the shooter, his classmate in college. So when I contacted him, he was actually very polite with me, and I gave him a little hard time because I was like, I was very skeptical of what's going on, and he was very polite back, and we had a little conversation via online, and I hope that was him. It could have been somebody else, but I think it was him. So as we're talking, it just didn't line up. His testimony that he was giving to the press, what he was telling me, what he was telling the sheriffs, and then I started to look into more of the other eyewitnesses, and then you would see conflicts with their stories together. That right there started raising flags big time with this whole thing, and it started to smell like this thing was just completely fake, completely made up, and it was just nothing happened that day other than a drill. Now I say drill because there's reason behind that when we get into later on. So as I started to dig a little deeper, I started to get well known with this investigation as I started to uncover bits and pieces of it. I actually got a hold of the police broadcast that day, and this is where it all started to come together. In the police broadcast, it was from the neighboring town. It wasn't the one that they were in Pima County, because they had shut down their police broadcast that day, which was a little suspicious, but at that time I didn't know why. But they left the adjacent town wide open, and so some of their calls for other ambulance and other emergency personnel went to that other township. So as I grabbed that and I started listening to it, The whole event was supposed to take place at 9 a.m. in the morning in this parking lot. And the sheriff said it was supposed to be all over with within 15 minutes. They had the scene secured and the gunman in custody. But here's the funny thing. As I'm listening to the police broadcasts, the call goes out, just like he says, at 9 a.m. And then 45 minutes later, another call goes out for the same mass shooting at the same location. And then 45 minutes after that, another call for a mass shooting at the same location. The dispatcher each time was getting less and less, energetic with her voice because she knew that it was a drill. Right. And the reason why I say drill, like I said before, is when it's a multi-jurisdictional drill, and the police and firemen, they do it all the time. They have these large drills. They have to role play these events, these mass shootings or a big casualty type situation. And in order for them to have everybody that's involved in this play their part, they replay this event a couple times or 3 or 4 times during the day, so everybody has their chance. And that's what I was hearing when I listened to that police broadcast. And at that point, that's when it really started to make sense that this was a drill and that nothing happened that day. Nobody was shot, and nobody was killed. No federal judge was killed. So then I started asking myself, well, then who are these people that are playing these roles? Because obviously there's a senator involved. There's a federal judge involved, and these have to be real people, don't they? So I started going online, and I pulled up the Thomas registry for the senators, where everything that happens in Congress is in that registry. Every bill, every speech, everything is logged. So I started to look at this Gabrielle Giffords person, and she was supposedly a senator for about a year up until that point. And I couldn't find any transcripts, nothing, no bills, nothing signed with her name on it. She wasn't even there. It was like basically she was just made up. And the other clue that I got was when the news people were talking about that event that day, they were missaying her name. They were saying Giffords, and they were calling her a him, her. Nobody knew who this person was. And I sat there and I said, this is really strange that a news person, the person that's supposed to be saying this to the public, doesn't even know how to pronounce her name. Something's wrong with this. So then I started looking at all the other senators and reps that are in the registry, and I found 4 other individuals that had no records involved with them, and they were the adjacent towns or cities right around this Pima County where this event took place. And it started raising flags again. So at that point, going on Joyce's show, which was a nationally syndicated radio show, I started becoming more and more popular, and I said, Joyce, I got to go down there and check this out firsthand, put boots on the ground and do an investigation down there. So I did, and it was an event that basically defined what I was going to do for the next 9 years, because these individuals that you see in this event, they are related by blood. Yeah. And we can prove this through a lot of different events that we've investigated, but you'll see the same individuals pop up in an unrelated event 3 or 4 years down the road, and then you'll see them pop up again. So these individuals are associated with law enforcement, and we found out that they're DHS employees, and they are basically hired actors to play these roles. Now, the reason why, we could speculate forever, but we have photographs, we have video evidence, we can prove that these individuals are who they are, and they're playing this fake role for whatever reason. But that's my whole point is, I don't care why they're doing this. I want to know who they are, and if they're breaking the law, we're going to go after them. So we took that approach of looking at the legal aspect of what's going on here, and when I found out some certain things about public representatives and people running for office, it blew my mind. And what that was I discovered that, and we'll just say this, for example, Jesse Ventura. We all know who Jesse Ventura is. He was the governor of Minnesota. Well, Jesse admits that his name... Yeah, and a wrestler, yeah. Well, he admits that name, Jesse Ventura, is not his real name. And he also admits that it's not even registered to him. So I started thinking, how does this guy run for office, get elected, and he's using a fake name? He's signing official documents with a fake name.
Well,
so when I went...
go ahead. He's basically using his wrestler name.
Well, yeah, and he admits that he made that all up, and it's not even registered. So yes. It's a fake, fictitious name. So how do you sign an official document with a fake name? That's illegal. You can't do that. You can't file a complaint in the courthouse and use a fake name. That's a felony. So I asked my lawyer, I said, can you run for office and never have to show any form of ID? Because I found this one document, and the clue was at the bottom where it said, in this document, it's called a candidate oath form, where all the candidates, anybody that's running for office has to fill this out. And at the bottom of the first page, it says type of ID shown or personally known. And I went, type of ID shown or personally known? That's kind of strange. And when I asked my lawyer, I said, can you run for office without having to show any form of ID? And he looked at me and went, yup. And I went, are you kidding me? My jaw was on the floor. I couldn't believe that what I was hearing was true. And I said, so basically this form is a way of them getting around showing who they are, because you have a third person, somebody vouch for you, and they're the ones that hand their ID to the notary. So the person that's running for office never shows an ID. And the loophole that this created, it got around campaign finance issues, it got around holding them accountable. So you have to understand that this is something that all our elected officials take part in. And this is the reason why they do things that they aren't afraid of you, the constituent, because you can't hold them accountable because you don't know who they are. And I started to peel back all these layers and the legal aspect of what I was seeing, and it was mind blowing. It just absolutely took me on just a roller coaster ride that basically left me completely changed, completely aware of what's going on. And when I see the TV, I can see these people and I understand what's going on. And it's just basically, I call it the hijacking of humanity. And that's basically what it is. And everything that you see on this TV is manipulated by whatever entity of the government you want to call into play, military or law enforcement, local law enforcement. But there's reasons why they all do this, and we can get into that later on. But it just blew my mind what I was seeing.
So this is, and what you're saying here, I really want this to hit home to the listeners. Because the document that you were talking about, as far as people applying for political positions in office, what did you say? They needed an ID, or
it was type of ID shown or personally known, or personally known is the big key. Yep. Yeah,
or personally known. Now I swear to God, I saw that document. You put it up somewhere.
Yes.
I don't have it now. I wish I did. I think I should have talked.
If you type in oath of candidacy or a candidate oath form in Google, there's one of the Florida offices has their government office has one available online. I have it on the website. I don't know the URL to it, but I can give it to you later on and post it. But yeah, it's a real form. You can go get it from the government office.
I've seen,
and that's not the only one. It's not the only one. There's a lot of them that are like that.
Yeah,
and it all has that loophole.
Yeah, I've seen that form, man, because I know you posted it, and I actually saw that form not too long ago. I think I saw that form after I came back to Canada. And it same for me. It blew my mind. I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
You can just get some third party to say, yeah, this is Jesse Ventura.
Yep, absolutely. And it's completely legal. So that was just, I mean, if you really think about what that does, and we're talking about campaign finances, when you don't know who that person is, they can receive money as they're a real person. They could buy stocks. They could do insider trading as they're a real person, and you wouldn't even know it. No way would the SEC know it. No way would any government agency that's involved in the refinancing or campaign finance laws. No way would they ever know, because they don't know who the person is. So, I mean, it was just like, okay, and here's the other aspect that blew my mind. So we don't know who this person is. We don't know if this person has been hired to play this role, which actors do. Yep. We don't know if this person has a foreign government behind him, backing him, and getting him into office, or trying to get people into office that are going to make decisions based on, what's the best interest of this country. What could happen with this loophole is endless. And it really started to make me look at these crazy things that you see on TV that our elected officials are doing, and really go, is this scripted out? Is this really, are these people real? And the more and more I looked into it, the more and more I found that they're not. They're actors that some of them are well known. Yes. And it's going to blow your mind. And it's really hard to understand. It's hard to accept at first. But as you look at it, more and more your eyes will become tuned to this, and you'll see that these people are not real. They're reading scripts, and they're not legitimate individuals acting out for their constituents. So, at that point, I really didn't know what to do. And, when I would tell somebody, of course, some people would get it, some people wouldn't. I would get a pretty much a lot of anger and hate thrown back at me, which was fine. I could handle it. But, I needed to find a way that I could actually prove it to people. So that's when I sat down and I said, okay, how can I actually prove with scientific background that this person is not who they say they are, and I believe that they are this actor. Well, I started looking into biometrics. And the thing that popped out, since these individuals are very highly photographed and on the video, we have very good quality images of these individuals, ear biometrics was one that I looked into. And this is something that the INS and the FBI, they use all the time. Your ear is like a fingerprint. It's a genetic trait passed down through your bloodline. So
hey,
nobody has the same ears.
Before we get into that, Ed, I want to make a caveat to the listeners, and then I want to get into biometrics, because that's another topic, or another part of the same topic that a lot of people really quite don't understand about this concept of actor-based reality. We're not talking about people that look the same. We're talking about hardcore evidence based on biometrics. And after I finish this, you can go in and explain the biometrics, because this is something people have to learn. And one thing I want to say is, I got Mekong Farong in my chats is saying, I like Jesse Ventura, fake name or not. But that's not the point. The point is the man signed up and ran for governor under a pseudonym. And it was all legal.
Correct.
And that means anybody can do that, which means that your political officials and leaders can use a pseudonym, just like Jesse Ventura did, although he was a famous wrestler. But they could use a pseudonym, get put into power, and that's not who they really are. And I will, Ed, you give me that link after the show, and I will put it in the low bar so people can look at it and see for themselves. And this is very, very important, I think, for people to understand when we're talking about actor-based reality. The people who you see in power and the names that come up in the titles under their videos, that's not them.
Correct.
That's not their real name. You need to understand that. And they're still getting put into power, and it's all legal.
Yep. And you have to understand there was talk about wearing a mask, some Greek literature, I forget, from a long time ago, about how an actor wears a mask, and how if the mask is believable, they can walk around and people actually believe that is a person, a real person. And they, behind that mask, can do anything that they want, because they have that shield that they're anonymous, and it allows them to be whatever is called upon them on the script. So they don't have any fear, they have any emotional attachment to it, because they know when they take the mask off, you can't trace it to them. And by me IDing these people and actually going after and putting their birth name out there, it caused a lot of problems, because that's the big thing that these actors fear. When you ID them, it's all fun and games until you ID them, and then it's So, and here's one, for example, that I use a lot. If you look at one of the I believe it's the senator of Georgia. No, he's the U.S. representative for Georgia, 4th Congressional District, Hank Johnson. All right. And again, when you're going to see these names, you'll see these references to dick jokes. Johnson being a dick joke. You'll see a lot of this. They can't help themselves, and it's just you'll see.
I've noticed that. I've noticed that.
Obvious. Yeah. So when you look at Hank, pull up some of the YouTube videos and just look at the nonsense, the absolute nonsense.
I guess we'll probably have folks putting on white hoods and white uniforms again.
The nonsense that this guy is talking about, and you will just, like, for example, one of the videos he has on there about Guam, the island of Guam.
Point, sir, I think Guam is a small island.
Very small island, and about 24 miles, if I recall, long. So 24 miles long, about 7 miles wide at the least widest place on the island, and about 12 miles wide on the widest part of the island. And I don't know how many square miles that is. Do you happen to know?
I don't have that figure with me, sir. I can certainly supply it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that. the Guam population, I think, currently about 175,000, and again, with 8,000 Marines and their families, it's an addition of about 25,000 more into the population.
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that.
And he starts talking. He's in Congress saying this, just talking to Congress, and it's on the registry. He's saying that I think if the military puts too many vehicles on the side of Guam, that the island might tip over. Is that a possibility? And you're sitting there going, "This isn't real. This looks like a Saturday Night Live skit." Well, when you understand who this individual is, that individual, and we've used the biometrics to ID him. That's Philip Lamar. Philip Lamar was on, I believe it was Mad TV. So if you understand that this person is a comedian,
being no helium for comedians to get that high-pitched voice,
and you understand that he played multiple roles on that TV show, that's part of what actors do. It fits in exactly what this person's doing, and he's being paid to be a representative, and he's acting like an absolute idiot. And you'll see, it's not just me making that opinion. You'll see the stuff that he does, and I can't believe that the people of Georgia don't just basically just take him out of office. But I don't know, maybe they believe that he's a real person, but I would be pretty upset if he was my representative. And
I think the problem with a lot of people is that we're so hypnotized by the media, by the popular media, that we just accept the characters that are put in front of our faces. Sure.
Yeah, TV is probably the most influential media that has ever been invented. Radio, of course, is probably the next one. But, when you buy that TV and you plug it in and you get that free broadcast coming through and you see the images that it shows you, nobody ever told you that what you see is real, even if it says it's reality. Nobody ever said that just because this guy is wearing a $3,000 suit and a nice tie and he's standing with a $1 million set and he's talking about a thing called news, that he's any different from the professional wrestler screaming about how he's going to kill the guy in the next match. It's the same thing. It's all scripted out, and it's not reality. But it overlaps into our reality. And for example, with my situation where I have a Supreme Court victory, I was arrested unlawfully, and I won. I took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and it's the reason why we have open carry in Texas, my case. So there's individuals that, of course, made those laws that are elected officials. So these actors that are in positions of power do affect us in reality. And when I started seeing that these individuals aren't who they say they are, I had a big problem with that. A big problem, especially since I was in the military, and I had to sign my name on that line to kill somebody or possibly be killed by another person. I take that very serious, and so should everyone else. So when you find out that the chain of command is compromised by individuals that you don't even know if they're really working for the United States or if they're being hired by an outside entity or just an outside person who is very rich and is funding this campaign, you have no idea. So I got a little upset with that, and that's another thing that fueled me to dig deeper.
Yes, and I want people to understand. I mean, as far as we're talking about with this actor-based reality and identifying these people and seeing that they're not who they say they are, I want to get into the biometrics now, because one of the things, and I remember looking at your work 6-7 years ago. Sure, I was looking at it and going, okay, all right, this could be the same person, different name, different identity, and then you dropped ear biometrics, and I know there's more to it than that, but I want the viewers to have an idea of what ear biometrics are. And before you explain it, I've just very simple Google search, guys. very simple Google search. Ear biometrics. Now, biometrics are a way of identifying an individual, correct?
Correct.
Now,
biometrics are measurable things on the body, or what the person does, their speech patterns, the way they walk, or fingerprints are biometrics. Everything about the body that can be classified as unique is something that we look at as identifying that person as the individual.
Right, exactly. So it includes fingerprints, your gait, we call it the way you walk, and then of course your ear, the veins on the back of your hand, is another one that you've used a lot. Now, I'm going to show to the viewers, again, quick, simple Google search, ear biometrics. All right, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to show this, and then I'm going to get you to explain it, how you've used it and what it is, okay?
Sure.
All right, so I'm going to share the screen. All right, so here's a simple site you guys can look up. It's and I just found this now. Descartes Biometrics Identity Matters. So when it comes to biometrics, obviously it has to do with identifying an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look
Correct.
at the website I'm at, there's a camera looking at a guy's ear to identify who he is.
Correct.
It says, identity matters. Humans have always had the need to identify each other in order to verify that people are who they say they are. We traditionally rely on things we carry and things we remember, like ID cards and passwords. However, these methods of identification are easy to fake and can be lost, forgotten, stolen, even hacked. Biometric identification is the solution. All right, so here's this website trying to sell you ways to identify people.
Sure.
Now here, I don't know if you're looking at the live stream, you might see this.
I'm seeing it, yes.
Okay, so here I just pulled up ear biometrics photos, and this is how they do it, gentlemen.
Correct.
And
that's one of the methods. There's several methods that they use.
There's several methods they use, but this is one of the methods, and I just wanted to show this to the viewers because I want them to have a bit of an understanding. I didn't pull a photo off your site that really had that, so I just wanted to point this out, that you can map out the ear like this.
Correct.
And that you can use that to identify a person in a way, and I know you've said this, Ed. It's non-obtrusive. Like you.
Correct. Yes. Don't need their permission.
You don't need their permission. You don't have to make them give a fingerprint, but it's similar to a fingerprint.
And when you use the technique that we use, it's called a multimodal approach, which means that this is one biometric that we use, the ear. The face, we don't really use the face all too much because the face is actually the most changing part of your body. But we do have things like the hand veins that you mentioned, the dorsal hand, back of your hand. Now, the vein pattern that you have, those bifurcation points, the way your vein branches off, they don't change. So you're set with those in life. So now you got two methods that if you have the ear shot and you have the back of the hand shot, okay, now that's two things that you can say that this person matches and that matches in these both the methods that we're using. So can we add more to that? So we'll use possibly teeth, but teeth, of course, since we are working with Hollywood actors, veneers can be used, and so that means when we look at teeth, it can be used to match, but it can't be used to prove that it's not the person, because just the way that they can hide their identity with the fake veneers, which are very simple, and they've done this before. Now the ears, it's very difficult to try to change the ears, even with small prosthetics. When in Hollywood, they sort of just overlook that, because nobody was really looking at it before. Nobody, from my perspective, was trying to use it against them like we're doing. So these old photos that you have of individuals in their portfolio, old films that they use, their ears are going to be pretty much pristine. And the ear doesn't really change too much over your entire lifespan. You're set with it, and that's it. It's cartilage, and it just stays there. It will droop in the lobe as you get older, depending upon the health of the person, and diets and things like that. But the middle ear doesn't change very much. I mean, maybe a 1/16 of an inch by your whole life. So it's a very good way that you can ID a person that they've really overlooked when it comes to hiding their identity, when it comes to fingerprints and everything else. So like I said, and that was a big point that you made about it's non-obtrusive. Since it's basically a big fingerprint on the side of your head, we don't have to have permission to take a photograph, and all these actors are well documented, so it was a perfect way to actually start and use that against them. So we also, there's so many different biometrics that are being introduced right now, and one of them is actually the way you stroke the keyboard. People hold their hands a certain way, and and you spell certain words wrong sometimes just because of the way that your hands are moving. There's lots of different ways to identify a person when it comes to that, and they are using that when it comes to government agencies to ID a person and to build a case. So it's all these different biometrics put together that make it a more than reasonable that this person is who we say they are. So we started using that. I got a lot of backlash from people, and I understood this because we're dealing with actors that it's their job to change their appearance, and some of them do it really well. The ones that do it really well, the ones that you don't notice that they're not who they say they are, those are the real dangerous ones because they blend in and they're a chameleon, and you just don't even realize. But when you look at this Hank Johnson, the senator that we mentioned, and he starts acting like this, it just totally brings attention to him. And I have a photographic memory when it comes to faces, and this has been a gift that I have, a gift or a curse, depending upon how you look at it. But it's been something that has been very useful with this, and I never knew I would ever be able to use this gift because I've had it all my life. And I used to tell my grandfather while I was watching TV, and oh, that's that actor from this, and he goes, no, that's not the same person. Yeah, it is. And I remember the faces, and I've always been this way. I don't forget a face. And I never thought that it would be able to be useful. I said, why couldn't I have a gift of spelling, to help me out in school? But no, I have to have this useless gift. And all of a sudden, it becomes really useful with what I'm doing. Yeah. So combine this talent with the internet, where we have now access to databases, where we have access to galleries and millions of photographs now, and videos of people. It just makes it so much easier to do an investigation that before you wouldn't have been able to do. There's no way you could have gone to the library and pulled up, this image, that image. It would have taken forever. So the internet has been extremely useful with this type of work. So when it started to become my work was getting well known, and I started to meet with some of these actors. Some of them were upset. Some of them wanted to see if I was legit or if I was actually being fed the information because they had possibly, another conglomerate that owned this other media that's in there, competing against them, possibly wanted to cause problems with them. So they wanted to find out who I was and just to see what I was up to. And I met with quite a few of them, and it was awkward. But I explained to them why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I said that what you're doing to this world is not right. It's not right. And they don't see it as something that's wrong because they really don't care, because nobody's getting hurt, they think. They think if you believe what's going on your TV, if you take it to heart, then you're an idiot, you're a fool for believing it. And if you act out on that bad information, then you're more an idiot, and you should be arrested if you or do something stupid. So I explained to them that what's going to happen is once I start releasing this information, more and more people are going to find out about it, and it's not going to go away. It's going to grow. Now, it might grow slowly, it might grow fast, I don't know, but it's going to grow because it's not going away. And I said, it's not going to go away. So eventually, over a period of time, maybe not this week, maybe not next year, maybe not 10 years or 20 years, because it's taken 250 some years for this country to get where it's at. Yeah. But that was without the internet. So who knows what technology will do? I said, it's going to come a day in the future where there's going to be enough individuals that are going to know what you've been doing, that they're going to start dragging you into the streets, and they're going to want justice. It's going to happen.
Tar and feather, man.
Absolutely. And I said, you either deal with it now and you stop doing what you're doing, or you take a different method. But eventually, if you don't, it's going to be bad for your family and for your situation. I can guarantee it. And they saw it as, they know what's going on, but they're still so arrogant with what they've been doing that they really don't care. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I'm not going away. And they tried to buy me out. They've tried to do many things to stop me, and it hasn't worked, and it's not going to work. So
now you said going back to the Giffords event.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke to this Jared Lee Loughner?
Well, I didn't speak to him at the time. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know that who I was talking to eventually would become that's the person. So he was playing different roles. And eventually I found out that person is related to the Hearst family.
Right.
So when you start to see this big, massive media conglomerate behind this event, and the family members, the Hearst family members, like the Patty Hearst daughters, they're involved in this, and this guy happens to be her boyfriend, one of the daughter's boyfriends. So when you see the group of individuals, the family members, in one scene, and they're not supposed to be, they're not supposed to be related when it comes to the event, but you see a person that that the person standing next to them, man, that looks like, Patty Hearst's spouse that's supposed to be dead. And then when you see this other guy in the background, that looks like her daughter or her son, or it's just all of a sudden you see the family, the whole entire family playing supporting roles around that one individual, and that's when the illusions really start to just fall apart. So knowing this pattern that I would see, I could go then to the next event, say a school shooting, and I would start to identify another family. We can talk about them later on, but John Aston, the Aston family. Aston family, yeah. And, you know, I've met John. I have his autograph. It's a long story about that. I've talked about it before, but, you know, he's a very nice guy and great guy. But when you look at the work that I've done on him, and you see standing behind him, he's playing the role of a sheriff in a big school shooting. Standing behind him is two of his sons, Mackenzie Aston and Sean Aston, and standing next to John is another guy that you look at him and you go, man, where have I seen that guy before? Remember, John Aston played the role of Gomez Adams in the Adams Family. Well, the guy standing next to him, who plays another official in the school shooting, another police liaison, that's the guy that played Gomez Adams in the remake of the movie. So again, you see the connection between the actors and the family sticking together and playing roles that all support each other in this one event. And they do this because if they had outside people coming in, they would risk being, of course, the lie would be spread. Somebody would leak it, and that would be a problem. So I found out that these individuals are law enforcement. They are involved in either local law enforcement as sheriffs, or they are part of Homeland Security or some type of military aspect. So they're bound by secrecy. They can't talk about this, and that makes sense. They're never going to talk about it, because if they did, of course, Leavenworth is going to be where they're going to be living. And so I understand why they have to do what they do, because the fact that they're being ordered to do this. But when you see Mackenzie Aston, that's standing behind John, I see you're putting the pictures from the Columbine shooting up there. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. When you see that Mackenzie Aston is a very, very big anti-gun person, he's been campaigning for that for a long time. And then when you see these individuals playing parts in school shootings, where with Columbine, they introduced 900 different laws that they wanted to pass, and 9 of them actually got through when it came to Congress. So that's 9 laws because of this event that shouldn't be on the books. It's 9 too many in my perspective. Yeah. So they're going after guns, but that's not the only reason. Because honestly, that's not. And people always they say they're gun grab and all that stuff. That's not really true, because they can't do that. And I can get into the reasons why. But what they would try to do is try to change the laws to make you afraid to use your gun, like the stand your ground laws, those states like Florida and Texas. So they want you to buy all the guns that you want because it's commerce, and
they make money off of guns.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Obama had investments in Vanguard, and that mutual fund has a lot of weapons manufacturers in it. So, you know, they do make money because every time they have a school shooting, Glock stock, you know, shoots up, and every time they start talking about, oh, they're going to take our guns, you know, they're trying to make, you know, laws that you can't have this clip or can't have that type of weapon, people go out and they buy guns because they think the day is going to come where they're not going to be able to buy them anymore. So it makes money for these manufacturers. And when you see that there's direct ties and it makes them profits, these individuals that are taking roles in this, then yeah, you can see that there's a problem there. But Mackenzie is an anti-gun pusher. And as I mentioned before, I have a Supreme Court case where I was arrested with my weapon going to my vehicle, and they tried to put me away for a long time with this. And I fought it all the way to the Supreme Court, and I won. So Chiarini v. Texas is now case law, and it's the reason why we have open carry, like I mentioned. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of people having the right to protect themselves. So I didn't like what I saw on here, and especially the fact that they're actually employed by our government. So the problem that you start to see is these events, and if you look at Homeland Security, they call these things HSEEP program. It's the preparedness, the emergency preparedness program, and another word that they use is called an X plan. It's a exercise program. Now, when you think about exercises that the law enforcement do, your local law enforcement drills, it's understandable that they're doing these things too. You know, they have to become good at what they're doing to take mass casualties for whatever events. They have to be able to do their job effectively to save lives. I get it. I understand that. But when you start to see the media take these events that are drills, like the Giffords thing that we could clearly hear them call it out 3 times that day, 45 minutes apart. That's not a mass shooting that happened and then was taken care of in 15 minutes, like the sheriff said. This is a multi-jurisdictional drill. And then when you see events like Columbine, where over 90 different agencies showed up that day, 90. Now, I don't know about you, but when there's a murder, and there was a murder in my complex a few years back, when that murder was a double homicide, when it took place, the people that showed up was the Dallas PD. That's it. They showed up, they took care of the situation, and if there was going to be a situation where, possibly a federal law was broken, they may bring in the FBI, they may bring in a bomb squad, who knows, but it's the Dallas PD that took care of that event. They didn't have the sheriffs, they didn't have the state troopers from another state, they didn't have, Carrollton and Plano, all these other surrounding cities all show up to this one event. Like over 90 agencies showed up at Columbine, because you couldn't do that. The jurisdiction is just, it would be insane. Same thing happened with the Giffords event. All these different agencies showed up, 3 different bomb squads, different. It was just a craziness to think that this would actually happen in reality. Well, it doesn't happen in reality. So these are clues that I started to see happen, the pattern with all these different events, these school shootings, these mall shootings, these airport shootings, multi-jurisdictional drills. Yeah. And then I started to say, okay, well, who's funding these things? Well, when you look at DHS, the X plan, which I grabbed a copy of an X plan that was, and this is when I was back with Joyce, it was an X plan for a school shooting that was coming up in 2 weeks from the date that was on this document. It was a 40-page document. It was from Homeland Security, and it said for internal use only, and it looked pretty official. But, I didn't know if it was official or not, so I sat on it for a little while thinking, am I going to leak this? Should I put it out on Joyce's show, or what should I do? Because at that time, I was under the understanding that these are possibly real school shootings or drills that actually go live and people get killed. That's what I believed at that time. Yeah. So I decided that I was going to release that document, and good thing I did. Because the next day after I released this school shooting document, the parents at that school went to the school super and they confronted him about it. And Fox News actually did a story on this, so you can see it's all verified. They asked him, what is going on with this document? What is this thing? And it's signed off by the sheriff. 40-some pages, and it gives a whole outline of how they do these events, how they do the drill, who's involved in it, what's their job role, and all the people that signed off on it are people involved in local law enforcement and hospitals and media. They're all names right there. So, they were like, what is this? And he said, I don't know. I haven't seen it before. So the super of the school didn't know that this big drill with all these people signed off on it, live weapons, were going to be used at his school the next day. And because of that, the following day after that, Homeland Security called off the drill. So because of them calling off that drill, it validated that document as actual proof and evidence that we can use, and we have been using it to match up all the other school shootings. So it's a very important document, and you can download it from my site, and you'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing was mind-blowing.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, I want to interject here. Let's... If you guys want to do your own research on this stuff, and I'm talking to the listeners that are probably unfamiliar with your work, please go to his website and look it up. It's there. I've done it. I was there. I was looking at his stuff 6-7 years ago when I came to this, and it is mind-blowing. It's mind-warping. Mm-hmm. Not even mind-blowing. It warps your mind.
And I just ask that your listeners just keep an open mind and don't look at it for face value of when you see this one event and this one actor, and possibly you don't think that looks like the same person. I understand a lot of people don't see what other people see, but when you take it in as a whole event, and you'll see that the person's spouse is standing next to them, or the children are involved in it, and you start to see all these patterns, you can't say it's just a coincidence that they look alike. Yeah. That's beyond the biometrics point of view, because I always say, when in doubt, check the spouse, and you'll see that that's been the big thing for the non-scientific approach. I don't believe that person's the same one, but oh man, their spouse is standing right next to him. It looks just like his wife or the husband, and then you see the kid, and you're like, man, that can't be a coincidence. So there's different ways of looking at it.
Yeah. Well, but also to add on to that, when you said when in doubt, look at the spouse. Again, for the listeners. We've given you some examples of what biometrics are and how they can be used to identify an individual. So it's not just a case of lookalikes. Okay? Mm-hmm. Look at the woman standing beside the man.
Yep.
They're the same fucking people.
Yep.
Every time.
And then like the Pope. You saw the image of the Pope that I did. It's insane.
Let me put the Pope up here.
Yeah.
I'll put the Pope up for you guys to look at. And again, you have to understand this. look,
it's difficult. I know. it's hard. It's so big and so massive, and it just takes one wrong turn for somebody to build that wall and just to be like, oh, this is crazy, this is nonsense. But it's really not. It's so logical and it's so simple what they're doing.
Yes. I'm going to share the screen with the Pope, and we'll get into the Pope more maybe later. But I'll put this up for now just to kind of look at basically what it means to identify one actor. And again, like Ed said earlier, you have to keep it in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And please, listeners, think about this logically. If you want to pull something like this off, you're not going to go and hire somebody that you can't trust.
Correct.
You have to keep it in the family.
And you also have to make sure that there is a bond between that family. There is, either military or there's law enforcement. So they have a vested interest, and they are actually bound by law, by contract, to keep their mouth shut.
Yes.
And it becomes very important for them to pull this off. And they've been doing this for many, many years. We're not talking about just this 20, 30 years ago. I've been able then to take these patterns of the spouse, the sibling spouse and things like that, been able to look back in history, and all these major events that I started looking at, they all seem to be the same thing, the same patterns, the same fakeness. And when you, of course, the common saying is the people in power, of course, are the ones that write the history books. So, of course, we're only reading one side of it.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a big point, because the people that are in power that write those books, and they put it on the news or the newspaper at the time or in the books, those are the media conglomerates, and those are the family members that we're talking about. These people that you see on the screen are related to the people that own the big conglomerates. So they're creating content for their family business. And this is why all the presidents of the United States, all the way back through time, they've always had a tie to mainstream media.
Yes.
Abraham Lincoln with his newspaper. All of them had ties directly or through a direct family member, a brother or whatever, that owned a newspaper magazine. The Kennedys owned multiple magazines and publications. So you're looking at something that the family of these people that are publishing this stuff, they're creating the content for their family. And they have to, because there's laws behind it. And we'll get into that, because that was one of the things that really, it was a pivotal moment for me when I started to look at this, and we got the biometrics, we got these people ID'd, but then it became, okay, how are they doing this legally? So I started to look at it from the legal aspect, and that's when it started to make a lot more sense. And when you see things like, if your listeners, any of them are healthcare providers, nurses, doctors, when you see the Gabby Giffords shooting, and you see the hospital liaison and her doctors all standing up there in front of the camera talking about a patient, talking about a little girl that was killed, talking about all these individuals, that it would be a conflict of the HIPAA laws. There's no possible way that a hospital or any healthcare provider would ever talk about a patient on the news. So at that point, all these nurses and ER doctors that I would talk to, they were like, man, it makes perfect sense, and there's no way that would happen. That can't happen, or we'd lose our license. And I'm like, okay, there you go. That's a good way of saying, if it doesn't happen in reality, if it can't happen in reality, and you're seeing it on TV, it's not reality.
Yes.
So yeah, you start to see these, it becomes very fake, and you start to go, wait a second, well, is that a real doctor? Well, one of the doctors that was involved in the Giffords thing, the Lamole is his name. I started to dig into this guy, and when I looked at his, there was a PDF that was put out by the hospital in his background in the directory. I grabbed that PDF, and if anybody knows what PDFs are, it's a file format. It's an image of a Word document. It creates an image, so you can't change it. Well, it also encapsulates the person's name of the machine that they did it on and their name of their account, unless you erase that. And that personal data you're supposed to erase on those PDFs before you publish it. Well, they didn't on his background, on his bio. And when I pulled up the person that created this bio, it was created 2 days before the event actually went off. And it showed who this person was, and it was easily traceable. And we could find that this person was a fake doctor. He was not real. And he's up there on stage talking about Giffords as if he was her surgeon. Yeah. So again, we're seeing the impossibilities that can't happen in reality because of HIPAA laws. So, go ahead.
Well, one thing I wanted to say about the Gifford thing. Now, when Giffords happened, I was in Indonesia, so I didn't, I wasn't involved in the mainstream fucking hurricane of that event, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, if I remember correctly, I didn't even really know about it until I saw your work.
Yeah. And obviously the news reporters didn't even know who it was when they were talking about it. So
Exactly.
nobody knew who this Giffords person was.
Exactly. And when I started looking into it, what I found was, okay, and remember, I'm in Indonesia. I'm tens of thousands of miles away. I don't care about what's happening in American politics and in the news. And I'm looking at your work with Giffords, and then after I saw your work, I'm like, well, I should look up this event. So I go online and I look up Gabby Giffords, the event, and I had no idea this shooting even happened. And then I see this woman pretending that she's mentally retarded.
A through wound with a 45. I mean, point blank range, and then within a couple weeks she's talking and everything. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? And then you see her on a stretcher, and there's a couple little drops of blood on the face. Now, if anybody even nicked their face when they're shaving, you know how much you bleed. Well, consider a through wound. Any type of head wound is just massive blood everywhere. So the guy standing next to her, and you see the picture that's on the screen. He was one of her aides. He said that he put direct pressure of the wound with his hand and held her up against his chest so she wouldn't choke on her blood. Well, look at him. He doesn't have a drop of blood on him.
No.
Not even on his hands. I mean, it's just, it just blew my mind. I was just, this is absolutely retarded. These people are just, this can't be real. So again, and look at the way she's on a stretcher. And she has short hair on a stretcher. She didn't have short hair. She had medium length hair down to her shoulders.
Yeah.
So all these different things, you're just going, nope. And then when I found that X-Plan document, that's when it all started to come together. Now you see that down the bottom corner, the image of the guy, the 3 EMTs over the body, and there's another guy with a different shirt on. If you look at his hand, and he's got his hand cupped, and he's reading something out of his hand. And I zoomed in on it, you can see it's an index card in his hand.
Yeah.
Now, if you read the X-Plan document, and remember, this is from Homeland Security. This thing leaked directly from them, and they validated it when they called it off. So it's from them. It calls this person that you see there, a
controller.
Not observer. Controller, yeah, the controller. A controller is a person that, say, when the EMPs get there, he goes, okay, this is Sally on the ground. She's a 45-year-old woman, non-smoker, blah, blah, blah. She all of a sudden grabbed her chest and keeled over, and there you go.
Yeah.
Go. And then they do what they're supposed to do. They're training. So he's reading off this card. He's reading the information to these guys, and they are supposed to react to it. That's how you do these drills. And then when you look in front of these guys, there's a little cup on the ground. That's the blood cup. That's the fake blood that they're using.
Right.
So, okay, right there, and also on their belt, you see the yellow communication device. In the X-Plan, it says that they're going to have 2 different types of communication. The normal one that they have on them, and then they're going to be given a 900 megahertz, communication device, which is a walkie-talkie that they can use in that circle. It doesn't go out, so you can't hear them talking. But that's that extra clip that they're holding on the back. That yellow big looks like a cell phone.
Yeah.
That's that second device. So again, we're seeing all these things that match with the X-Plan document. And the officials that were there that day, we have pictures of them with their name badges, their lanyards around their neck, and there's a color code on them. So I went back to the X-Plan again. There's a color code to the individuals and where they're supposed to be, where they can go according to the lanyard that they have. So again, we had another match to this being a drill. So just over and over again. Oh, another thing, you see where their bunker pants, the emergency guys there.
Yeah.
They don't wear bunker pants to mass shootings, because it's just, they don't do that because they're full of dirt and grime. Firemen don't do that. So yeah, if anybody is involved in ambulance drivers, things like that, please chime in, and you look at this and go, oh man, there's no way they put that oxygen tank between their legs. That's not even protocol. He's not even holding the IV drip. He's got it down to his side. I mean, what are these people doing? If these were real people, they would be be ridiculed by their peers.
There's got to be people. Despite your eye in seeing this and pointing it out, there's got to be professionals that did see this.
Absolutely.
And but me speaking as a layman, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I saw the work that you did, and And I went back and looked at the video footage and the media footage of it all. And I saw this woman called Giffords giving speeches as a retarded woman. I was like, that's the worst performance anybody.
And remember, her husband is supposed to be the twin, Mark Kelly, supposedly, his twin up in on the ISS, the satellite.
That's right. That's right.
So he works for NASA, and these people are all government. And I'm like, man, this is not good. This is not good. And also notice the picture you have up there.
Oh, okay. See
the outfits that people are wearing in the background? They sort of look like old outfits. Now, remember, this is Arizona. This is hot. And these people are wearing like flannels, and it doesn't look right, but they're wearing like old outfits. Well, if you look at the X plan, it tells the actors to wear old clothes because you might get ripped up, they might get stained with the fake blood. You're going to be handcuffed and put in a car and taken down to jail, and then you'll be released. But it's supposed to be as realistic as possible, so the training event goes perfectly as it would in real reality.
Right.
Now, the other aspect of that X plan document was the media, and this is where it really got interesting. It tells what the media is supposed to do, how they're supposed to handle the media, and basically what happens is these are real media people that have been approved to do these drills. They show up to the school shooting or this shooting, and they interview. It's called a hot wash. They interview the eyewitnesses. Now, at that point, that footage is owned by that media company, right? They can do whatever they want with it. It's their footage. So because the event was not a crime, because nobody was killed, that footage is for them to use however they see fit. Now, the police aren't going to tell the media how they can run their business because there's no crime. Nothing's going to happen. There's going to be no mistrial if they release this information, which was one of the other things that we'll talk about when it comes to the sheriff and the mugshot. But so the media takes this content that they own and they run it as this being a real drill. And one of the stipulations in the contract that they sign is that they cannot jeopardize the reality of this drill. They have to make sure that it's all real all the time when they show this, because they would just totally blow the whole thing. So you have the news media that has content now, good content that they have longevity with, that they can replay over and over again for the next 10 years depending upon how big the event is. Columbine, over and over again, all the anniversaries. This content is owned by them. They don't have to worry about the rights. They don't have to worry about paying other people to buy this footage. They own it. And when you see that the people behind this event are the Hearst family, there you go. It's advantageous for them to have their families creating this content, and then they own it. And all the documentaries and books, and of course books are published by publishers that are also owned by the conglomerates that own your media, the TV, the radio. It's all the same big conglomerate. So they create books out of it, they create documentaries out of it, TV shows. So it's a revenue stream that is massive for the industry.
Yeah.
So, I'm screaming, standing, pointing my fingers at the media as being part of it. And of course, where would you go to with something that you would think you want to get the word out to everybody? You'd go to the media. So of course the media looks at me and go, no, that's not going to happen. So they attack me and they ridicule me. New York Times does a hit piece on me with the Giffords event, and basically they were trying to scare me, to shut me up. And they said that they had the FBI come in and investigate me, and I knew this was a bunch of bull. I knew it was a bunch of bull because, first off, I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I'm just a person that saw what these people are doing, put it together, and has put it out to the public. So what, am I the bad guy? No, I'm not the one in front of the camera doing these things. It's them. So when they want to tell me, they would try to scare me, that's not going to happen because I know I'm doing the right thing. Yeah. And it became personal, so, with these actors, and it's been a battle with them. But to come back to the X plan and this document and what these media conglomerates and that law enforcement are doing, you have to look at where's the money. Who is funding this event? Well, at DHS, if you go to their website, you can type in HSEEP. That's Homeland Security's, I forget the acronym, but this HSEEP program is a grant program that they set up where they pay individuals, townships, or airports, or schools, or cities. They pay them grant money as long as the event that they host has to do with domestic terrorists. And an active shooter is a domestic terrorist in their eyes. So every time you see these mall shootings, these airport shootings, the school shootings, where right after the event, theater shootings, the other one, right after the event, they remodel. They just knock the building down and build a whole new building up. Well, that takes money to do that. Well, where are they getting that money? And obviously people didn't vote on it to remodel this thing, this school. They get it from the grant money that DHS is providing them. So DHS is hosting these events with these local towns and airports and businesses, paying them to do so, bringing in their actors, their people, to basically attack your free speech, to attack your gun rights, and then basically to make them, DHS, law enforcement, everybody,
I'm Ken
seem
Woodall.
like they are needed. We need them to protect us from these bad people, all these crazy gun fanatics, when that's not the reality at all. And that was when I made a personal campaign, and you see me calling them out and calling them liars and calling them terrorists, because by their own definition, anyone who pushes political agenda, either by force or threat of force, is a terrorist. So exactly what they are doing is their own definition of terrorism, and I call them out for it.
This is the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program.
Yep.
The HSEEP.
And now here's the thing. When I was putting together a couple videos about this HSEEP program, this is within the past few months, there's a document that you can download from them called the Actors Waiver Form. And that form, it's a brochure that every actor has to fill out and hand in to them. And it's a contract. It says that you agree that we can use your likeness for anything that we feel like it. You can't say anything. You're bound by, secrecy, non-disclosure agreement. So, and it also has things like, we're going to provide you with drinks and refreshments during the day. And that's why all these events you see people walking around with water bottles. Cops don't bring water bottles and give people water bottles at a murder scene. You don't do it. But when you see them with a bunch of stacks of water, like Sandy Hook and all the other school shootings, you go, that doesn't seem right. So all these little things together make one big piece of the puzzle. And when you see that in this document, again, another PDF that I spoke about before, the DHS published this PDF, the Actors Waiver Form, and they didn't take out the personal information by the person that created it. So as I'm creating this video about this HSEEP program, I looked at the background of this PDF that just came over, that I downloaded from them, and on it was a name that I recognized, and that name was James Tracy. Now, if that name doesn't sound familiar to you, well, it should, because James Tracy was the FAU, the Florida College professor, who claims that because he called Sandy Hook a hoax, that he got fired, and then the school sued him, and all this big media stuff went about it. So when you look at James Tracy, and right above his name it says what department this James Tracy worked for, and he worked for the HSEEP program. So James Tracy is now on the alternative media stations with Jim Fetzer and all these other people who I trusted at one point, and I did James's show, and I know him personally like this, but because he is associated now with James Tracy, and I've pointed this out to him, I have actually filed for FOIA information on James, and we're going through that right now. But James is now talking about, Homeland Security in this HSEEP program when he was one of their employees. So he's a plant. He is part of them, and he's planted in the alternative media to play this role. Now, I know some of you out there that maybe went to FAU and say, "Oh, that was my professor. No way is he a government agent. He's real. He taught me my class. I was in his class." You may have been, absolutely may have been. But if you listen to what James says when he's talking to Watson from Prison Planet, he talks about these so-called crisis actors, and we'll get into that later on. But he even says that they're planted in this environment a year ahead of time. They blend in, they create relationships, they do their job. So then everybody around them, their neighbors or people they have, physical relationships with, girlfriends that they date, everybody can say that, no, he's not a government agent. He's a real teacher. I was in his school. I know him personally. I went out drinks with him. Yeah, that's part of their job. That's part of the cover.
Yeah.
So, and people have a hard time understanding that, but these are military people. This is a military campaign that these people are putting out there, and they're conning the public. For whatever reasons, we could go 1,000 different directions, because there's always multi-pronged reasons. But when it all boils down to it, they are putting on a big lie, and they're causing damage to the population. They're causing damage to society, and that's where I want it to end. So,
well, when you talk about that, about these people being put in these situations to make the people around them feel comfortable of who they are. This is just my opinion, but I think one thing that a layman, and remember, when I say layman, I mean a person that doesn't really quite understand what's going on here, is one thing you can look at that really stands out like a sore thumb is that they really come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They just appear. There they are. They were never really in the public eye. They weren't really there, but for the rest of us, we see it, and then all of a sudden they're there, and they're a character, a caricature, and there they are, and they're in. Well, of course, in the modern age now, they are a meme. They're a clown.
Yeah. Exactly. So when you see these clowns, and they're apparently supposedly arrested. Well, with Jared Loughner, the one that shot Giffords, I looked into the laws behind this, and there has to be a lien filed on the prisoner, and basically that's for them to pay back the money that they're owed to the state. Well, if there's no lien filed on that prisoner that they're holding in jail, then that means that person is not in jail. So again, I did some digging, and he's not. There's no lien. There's not a real person. He's not in jail. And this is why you also only see court sketches of the person. You never see any video of the person in jail. It's a fiction. He's not real.
Yeah.
So it's, again, and one of the other reasons that totally was a red flag for me was when the Sheriff Arpaio, it was Sheriff Dupnick, I'm sorry, Sheriff Dupnick, a sheriff of 50 years in Pima County, stood up in front of the press. This is just a few days after the shooting. He held up a mugshot of this supposed shooter, and that mugshot didn't look like the mugshot that the following day the marshals released. All right, so the marshals released another mugshot, and when you look at them side by side, their mugshot is a guy who looks like a prisoner. Well, the sheriff's mugshot, it was all photoshopped. His eyes were darkened. They made him look evil. He just looked like a completely sinister person, and there was no way that was done just by the camera and the lighting. This was done intentionally. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, the investigation isn't even concluded. There's nothing. They haven't even charged this guy, and the sheriff is up in front of the media calling this guy a murderer, calling this guy, all these names under the sun, that if any of your listeners were in the same position and a sheriff was calling you these names before a trial, before a guilty verdict, before any investigation was even done, you would sue the hell out of that sheriff. It would be a massive lawsuit. And plus, it would cause a mistrial. There's no possible way that the sheriff would release this information before a trial. It just doesn't happen in reality. It would cause a mistrial. He could say something wrong, and then that evidence will be excluded just because of what he said. Yeah. There is no sheriff on this planet, no lawyer on this planet that would ever talk to the media before a trial. They just don't do that. So again, you're seeing things on the TV that people are believing that aren't in line with reality. And that same thing you can use, that same pattern of, okay, if an official's talking about an event where a child's murdered or anybody's murdered, or let's say Hillary Clinton, FBI, Mr. FBI man, is Miss Clinton under investigation? Why, yes, she is. Would that really happen in reality? No. Yeah. Law enforcement's not going to tell the public that somebody's being investigated. It just doesn't happen. You find out if you're being investigated come 6 a.m. when they kick your door in to get you. Or they don't get you, then means they didn't find anything on you. They don't tell the people, so then their associates and everybody else can run around and go gather the evidence and get rid of it. Yes. They don't do that. So again, you're seeing these fake staged dog and pony shows with Clinton, with all these Senate trials. It's just fake. It's fiction. And who benefits? Well, they do. The media does. All the law enforcement does. They get bigger budgets because they need all the bigger guns to fight all these crazy people that are, crazy Americans with guns.
Well, they sell more guns.
Exactly, sell more guns, and it's a one big mess, and it's mind-boggling when you actually start to peel this back and you see how intrusive it is on our lives. When you talk about TSA going to the airport, you could go to the airport and you get body scanned, you can have all this crap that happens to you, but you can pay $75 and get a fast pass, which means that you can go straight through the old metal detectors and get around it. Are you kidding me? I was going to Seattle one time, and we're standing in this big long line, and the TSA director comes out for the airport, and he goes, if anybody has this special card, it's $75 a year, and you fast pass, and you go through the old metal detectors, and you get past all this stuff. And of course, me being the smart ass I am, I'm like, so if a terrorist says $75, he can go that way too. And he looked at me and went, yep. I went, okay. And everybody else started laughing. I'm like, I'm laughing, but this is not funny. This is not funny, people. And I was like, I can't believe this.
It's fucking incredible. I want people to understand that are listening that a lot of this manipulation that's happening, that obviously maybe you don't quite understand at this point, they're making profit off of it.
Oh, huge profits. Huge
profits off of, well, not just your ability to pay $75 and go through TSA. But it comes down to all kinds of content that these people create. And they create characters that show up out of nowhere. And I want to say that again, because this is something that really tipped me off. You know, and this for me, this went back to Obama and in modern day AOC. Where do these people come from? They got no history. Like there's no history there. Nobody really knows where they're from. If you do know where they're from, if they did put the time in to create the backstory, which we see with like Mike Pence and all that, and you see what I've done with that, the fake history is sort of real, but you know it's in line, it's parallel to what the fake story is. But you have to find out who the people are involved, and then when you learn of who they are, then the whole story, you read between the lines, and it becomes you can figure out what's going on. Yeah, exactly. But again, I mean, I have to say to you, Ed, I'm still a layman, you know. I'm still trying to understand a lot of this stuff, and I'm telling you, one of the key things that really pushed me over the edge was like, well, how come a lot of what I'm being fed today, and these characters that are being shown to me, and they are characters. Why is there always such a discrepancy between who they are now and who they've been before? Like, wouldn't that be simple?
Sure.
I mean, everybody's got a past. How come it's so convoluted? I don't get it.
Well, a lot of these actors, when it comes to some of the, and I get asked this all the time, or when this child actor is in a school shooting, well, how come did he go to school? Who were his classmates and all that? Wouldn't they be able to say this kid didn't go to the school? That's right, he would, but most of the child actors are homeschooled. Most of them aren't involved in regular school.
Yeah.
Or a lot of them are military brats. And do you remember back in school when you'd have that one kid that would come in for like a semester, you know, the new kid, and it was a military family or whatever, and then within a couple months he's gone again?
Yes.
Well, you know, these are the kids, these are the people that are involved, and you know, their whole families are involved. Now take that to the next level where you're an acting family. Your family is well-known actors. Well, that's what you do for a living, and you get paid more if you can become other characters that, of course, you don't get typecast for if they know who you are. So they are very well trained at disguising themselves, using different types of different techniques when it comes to makeup and hairstyle. They're good at this, and CIA even trains people how to do this. This is something that is mandatory when it comes to being a CIA agent, because if you were to meet with somebody who is you're investigating, or somebody that is a foreign spy, you don't want to walk into the restaurant where you're meeting this person and, Bob, your next door neighbor, walks over to you and goes, "Hey, what's up, Ken? What are you doing here? What are you wearing that wig for?" That would totally be bad for them.
Yes,
So
exactly.
they are trained in the art of disguise. This is mandatory. You can see videos of them talking about it.
I was going to
on
say that,
YouTube.
the art
Great
of
stuff.
disguise, man. The art of disguise.
It's a whole division when it comes to disguising yourself, when it comes to their clandestine acts, and it's. I understand that there is a need for it, because, if this is happening in our country, if these actors are playing roles as our elected officials and making laws that affect us, and we don't know who those people are, and they could be foreign, they could be, a foreign entity funded, then that means it's not just happening here, it's happening in other places. And we're probably doing the same thing over in, whatever ally or whatever, enemy country, doing the same thing to them. So I ask people, I ask you to just think about this for a second. If you're a government agency or a military operation and you want to know about a foreign country, now for whatever reason, we could say that they're going for the oil, they're going for whatever. It doesn't matter. If you want to know intelligence about that country and you can't walk in and just find out because it's being hidden, is it easier for you to send in an agent that's fresh out of the academy with his crew cut and gung ho and that stands out and looks like an FBI agent? Or is it better to send in, I don't know, let's say Oprah?
Yes.
You have like Julia Childs, who is known through history. She was a spy. These famous individuals in Hollywood are spies because they can walk into a foreign leader's home and sit down in the living room without security and just talk.
And they make movies about it.
They do. When you see George Clooney going over, and I have a big thing about George Clooney, or these actors that have all these foreign children that they've adopted from a foreign country.
Yeah.
And you're like, why would you guys adopt all these foreign kids? Well, that's because then they have an in with that country, and they're going over there and doing relief for them, and helping them out, donating and charity. And no, that's not really the real reason why they're probably over there. And it makes sense, because that would be the job, that would be the best way to get information. It would be an actor, be Hollywood, a famous star. You're just allowed to